Well, I'm going to do my level best to keep my remarks short today because a little bit later on during the prayers of the people, we're going to be hearing a statement from the bishops of the Episcopal Church exhorting us to pray for Ukraine and to give for the relief of refugees from Ukraine. And it was strongly suggested by our own diocesan bishop that we all hear this statement today. And just in case you want to have it to read over again, we've even inserted it into the bulletin. But please don't read it now, because then you won't be paying attention to my sermon. And it is right and proper that we should so do. Pray for Ukraine. Pray for all of the civilians who are in harm's way, for the animals, wild and domestic, who are terrified, not being cared for. Pray for the countryside that is being blasted and poisoned. To pray for the cities that are being laid waste. To pray for the civilians who are dying, who are fleeing, not knowing when or if they will ever return to their homes. Pray for the combatants on both sides, and their commanders, because we know what great moral hazard they are in. To pray even for those who have made the fateful decision to unleash this war. Pray for peace, knowing in our hearts what peace really requires. That it requires coming back to oneself in a manner that is like returning from death to life. Coming back to oneself as one who was lost, but now is found. This is our particular way as Christians of praying, not only for those for whom we have sympathy, those who are innocent, but also for those whose hands are bloody, those whose purposes we cannot understand, those who have gone astray into a far land of pride, arrogance, and hatred, and hypocrisy. We pray especially for them. Just as Jesus went out of his way to welcome the tax collectors and the sinners, those who are outside the law, those who by reason of moral turpitude, or outcast and looked down upon by the good and the righteous and the godly. He welcomed them and ate with them to nourish them with hope, the hope of God's grace the hope of forgiveness, the hope of coming again from death to life, and reconciliation and wholeness, such as only God can give. This special way we have of praying that sees no one from a human point of view any longer, but sees everyone as God sees them. This is what Paul urges upon the church in Corinth in his second letter to the Corinthians, a church with which he is at odds, because many have taken exception to the teachings in his first letter, which called them up short, pointed out to them some of the ways in which they were blind to their own failings and puffed up with their own knowledge and certain of their own spiritual advancement. It's to them that Paul gives this reminder that he himself once viewed Christ from a human point of view, once viewed him as a false prophet, as a criminal rightly crucified by the Roman authorities, someone who had infected his followers with false teaching, a teaching to be stamped out by whatever means necessary. And yet, he no longer sees Christ like that, needless to say, but as the one who died for all, so that all might live no longer for themselves alone, but for him, for the one who lives by grace, who brings forgiveness, whose arms and heart are open wide in compassion to embrace those who are dead in their sins.